1, 2, 3. Hello and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast. And now, your host, Sonny Perlman.
Penny. How you doing, Penny? Okay, we're trying to get used to these video podcasts.
All right.
Hello.
Yeah, blast from the past.
Yes. I'll try to get you on for a while.
I'm happy to be here.
And you were being back offish.
I played hard to get.
Yeah. The truth is, when I'm a hometown guy in two ways. First of all, I really want to get the people that are doing stuff in Monsey first. So, like, I'm trying to get everybody in Monsey, partially because of convenience, because they're right here. I don't have to make them travel so far.
Right. Totally.
But I think that is our teaching. You work with your community first. And the other thing is that we grew up in the same community.
That's right.
And what a weird community that was.
I
didn't even warn you that I was going to say that. What a weird community. Shayoshev community. Anyway.
That could be a whole podcast.
Yeah. Well, let's just make the podcast about that. No, I'm just kidding around. You're Shim's age.
Shim was in my class.
Shim was in your class.
Very close with Shim.
Holy cow, what a funny class, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's another podcast just discussing who was in your class. You had a really great class. I actually saw a video recently with Yosef and Shim and everybody singing. Right, Brazil. Shmuel Brazil's my uncle. So he had like set up like a little choir. I'll show it to you later. And they're all singing.
Nice.
You're going to die. Anyway, but we grew up together. It was a pretty insular, interesting community. And I am curious how that affected what you're doing. And I don't know if I want to go there, but like just to start with, because I want to talk about Daas and stuff like that.
Sure.
What, you have any thoughts on that? Because there was a lot of interesting. There was the Hasidus going on. There was like the fact that it was a little cultish, like we were all like, but a lot of very interesting people came out of that community.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I think a lot of people and a lot of interesting people came out of that community, but also a lot of interesting people were really coming in. Like Rav Shlomo Freifeld was gathering all those scattered pieces from all over,
right? And
he was trying to pull them together. And I think that's the greater conversation of what did he do? He did build a community. He did so much, but there was a lot of personalities there.
There was a lot of personalities, and actually, I would tell you something interesting. When I go through life, there's a part of me and that feels that if you didn't grow up in that community, you can't understand me. I don't know if you ever had this. Like, I'm like always like, and that's the weird cultish thing that I feel like is like if you meet someone who like grew up like Jehovah's Witness or something, like you have to have been like through what they were through.
I don't think that you could ever explain what Simchas Torah looked like in Shayoshev to anybody.
That's true.
Without having to bring that.
That was true. Wow. There was definitely a lot of substance abuse. That's all I'm saying.
a lot of addiction.
A lot of addiction coming out of that community. A lot of old-time sober people came out of that community, actually. But that's from my industry over here. Anyway, but it's always nice to talk to someone who grew up there. I don't know how much is going to come up on the podcast. I am curious, how it might have affected you. I know we all had these big families. My family, the fact that we have like 10 therapists in my family and there's only 8 kids is definitely part of that. There's a lot of the stamp of Shayoshev on us, I think.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah. There is a lot there. And I think that I know that my father was very close to Rav Shlomo Freifeld, so I did grow up with those stories and those messages, and I'm happy that that book came out. That people,
right, he wrote a book, right?
Right, so that people were able to really get some of those wonderful messages. But I think that it was maybe ahead of its time of like pulling together a real full community on every level to help people, and it was very hard. I think that some people went through it wonderfully, and then there was a lot of collateral damage.
Right.
But
He's not going into it. I love it.
I'm not.
Okay, we're not going there. But actually, your father is like, I mean, he was like the real Talmud. He was the true Talmud of Ray Freifeld, I think. No,
my father told me a cool story just the other day. He said, one time my mother and my father were eating at Reb Shlomo Freifeld's house on Friday night, and my father's on Atzala. He didn't like the way Reb Shlomo was breathing, and he went home, and then he said, I have to go back to the house. Like, I don't like it. He went, he brought on Shabbos, he brought like Dr. Hirsch out to Reb Shlomo's house, and he went into the bedroom. Like, the Rebbitzin was sleeping, Reb Shlomo was like, difficulty breathing, and they gave him the medication and helped him out. And then the next morning, as a kid, this is what we used to do. We used to walk to Reb Shlomo's house and then walk him to shul. And he said, like, the Rebbitzin said, did you come into my room last night when I was sleeping? And he's like, yeah, maybe.
She like, slept through the whole thing.
She slept through. She peeked out, and he said she peeked out, and she just went back to sleep and like just let. But he was like,
that's wild.
I went in. What a Talmud will do for their Rebbe. And that's the basic idea over here, is that he was a hardcore Talmud.
Yeah, he really was. I actually believe that your father got him in his later years, and because I don't know if you were alive when the Rebbe was around. Like, you were young.
I was young. I was like 6 years old, and I was nifter. But I still remember.
Really? So I was much older? I always thought I was. Okay. I'm like 5 years older than you or something like that, so I'm trying to figure it out. Okay. I don't know if we get it, but your father got a convertible, so the Rebbe did not have to duck when he got into the car. Tell me if that's true or not.
I don't know. That I don't know.
I remember I think it was the coolest car I ever saw in my life. Because in those days, we didn't have leasing. And you were the only family that had a Lincoln, I think, or a Cadillac. I don't remember what it was. I was like, that was rich. That was like, if you had a new car, like, that was like next level.
Boats. Old boats.
Old boats. Yeah, like those big old cars. Anyway, I could say from the Rebbitzin, we still have a tradition that the Rebbitzin gave her Hamantashen recipe, I guess to everybody, but my mother made it, and now my wife makes it, and it's literally the best Hamantashen in the world. So I don't know if this is a perm thing. That's my only connection left.
Keep it alive.
I'm keeping it alive. Okay, let's talk Daas, man. Let's talk Daas. So first of all, I reconnected to you when you were already a therapist. Like I'd moved to Monsey, you had moved to Monsey, and you had moved to Monsey. Were you in Monsey the whole time?
No, I got married. I lived in Israel for almost 6 years, and started going social work school over there. It was like the beginning of like when Zoom was able to be as a school. Now it's like standard for everything. And then I moved back. When I moved back, I picked Monsey, and I'm happy about it. I love it here. And so I mean, just to get into the flow, I worked as a social worker in the Bronx in a child and family clinic, really hardcore, for a good couple of years, where I was able to have a lot of different stories and really hone my skills and gain that confidence and competence to be able to be where I am today. That was like my what do they call that? What do the doctors call their like residency? Like that was those were my crazy hours and crazy stories, and
a lot of people say that's what you got to do to really become a good therapist.
It was wild. Like stories I still talk about till today that I worked with. And then
hold on.
Yeah,
give me the best story. Let's hear.
Oh no,
come on, good story. Come on.
This is a standard answer, is that when you ask a parent what's their favorite child, like you can't do it. So, but either way,
I'm not asking favorite.
No, but when it comes to therapy, it's not really a favorite. The horrible stories are usually not individual. Usually, it's an enmeshment of sadness, of just so many different parts.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, this one story that I remember. It's not like Atzalikol, like, oh, that was a crazy gory one. Like usually there's like massive abuse or neglect, and
right.
So they're rough. Could be
rough. Yeah. But it teaches you. I mean, I also started out with kind of a rougher group, like way back before I was a social worker, even like working with foster care. And I feel that was the best training, like on that level, like people who were like fully neglected. And if I could figure out how to connect with these people who are so, standoffish and, they've been through so much pain and suffering, then I could be able to, then almost like when I started working with the Jewish community, I'm like, this is easy. These people have parents that like them. Some of them even have parents that love them. Maybe it's the other way. They have parents that love them, and some of them even have parents that like them.
I will tell over a story.
Okay.
Now that you bring up the parent piece, I was working with a client once who there was an accusation that this client's father killed the client's mother.
Okay.
And I was working with a kid, like a 10-year-old kid, and so there was like the grandparent was involved in really watching the kid, and the father came in, and the father was a very scary man, and he was trying to get control over the child, and he was trying, somehow in middle of session, he turns to me and he goes, "I'm a good parent. I went to a parenting class," and he pulls out from his knapsack a little certificate, like a 10-hour certificate of a parenting class, and for me it was like, really? Like, that's not what makes a good parent, like taking a 10-hour parenting class. And then when I transferred back over in the Orthodox world, and to be able to see how many people are so engaged in that therapy for their children and the help for their children. Like there's so many courses and education and that, like, and I think in the outside world, it's much harder, and you have to push harder and work harder to get that. Here, it's like at your fingertips, right? There's Torah Anytime will give you, 10-part class on parenting, and there's so much there for parents who want it. It's right there, and I think that is really what's beautiful about, one of the things that are beautiful about the Jewish community.
It's interesting because even though it's there, I could tell you, my wife said to me the other day, again, I'm always quoting my wife and getting in trouble for it. We'll see. But she's like, I don't want to read another parenting book. I'm so tired of people telling me everything I do wrong. I'm like so tired of it. I'm trying my very best. That's what I talk about a lot. And maybe we'll talk about it as you talk more about Daas. But the feeling that I have that it's just too much to just raise kids, it's like we're always saying like, well, what could the parents do better? What could the parents do better? And I'm like, these poor parents. And when I say that, I'm talking about myself. Like,
Sure.
It's every kid
So
needs
hard.
like a village to raise them, and we're not a village. We're just me and my wife, and it's so much pressure that I almost feel like I don't want to learn anymore. Is that terrible? I don't know.
No, I think that parents will go through that. I think that it'll come in waves where they'll be inspired to do more, and then they'll be drained because they just had 3 weeks of heavy work hours, and the kids were half off of school, and it's totally normal to go through that in stages. It's hard. It's hard
Right.
as Orthodox parents. Where so many more mothers are working than when we were kids. There's less and less time for that connection and less patience for that connection.
Right. So okay, so let's transition to. I'll just ask you a dumb question. Why do we need therapy?
Why do we need therapy?
Yeah, I know this question is probably 20 years old. We're all accepted it. Everybody needs therapy. But, like, you're running a clinic, and we'll get into details, but obviously the biggest factor of the clinic is therapy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So why therapy?
So
What
why
do you think?
therapy? So my initial reaction was, who said everyone needs therapy? But really, I do like the line that says, like, everyone needs a little therapy. Everyone needs a little therapy. And I think that part of it is something that we have discussed in the past, was what does therapy do? There's a lot of different parts that therapy could do, but one of those parts is that you feel held, you feel listened to, you feel like someone is paying attention to you for that full 45 minutes to an hour. And it's priceless, because the world, and maybe that'll be more of a conversation of what's going on in the world, but that 45 minutes can be very helpful. Now, does a therapist need to do that? I don't know. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe you could find somebody that can do that for you without a therapist. So there's definitely, we work hard. We collect money from insurance, right? So we're not charging people as exorbitant prices for therapy. So the insurance company comes to us and says, hey, what's going on with this person? Why, we get audited. What are you doing? When is this going to be over? And we have to say like what we're doing. So I can't just say, hey, we're hanging out and we're giving them space.
Right.
So we do have to have some sort of goal. So when we have those goals, that's what we're working towards. And there are times where sometimes the therapist is like, we're not working towards a goal right now, but it's just so helpful for them to be able to have this space.
Right.
And we'll have to make that hard decision of what do we do next? How can we find them somebody that could be that person, or what else is there to do?
Right. So, okay. So, I mean, one of my pet peeves we mentioned it a little before as well, is the psychotic prices of private practice right now. And there are some rich people who could totally handle those prices. And it feels like at this point that everybody really needs therapy. Like, it just feels like everybody I speak to just needs at least someone to talk to at the minimum, like you're saying. Like, minimum, they just need to be held for a while. And I was telling you that myself, going to therapy, like, that's what I miss the most. When I go to good therapy, like, someone just holds me for a while, and I'm, and I'm a father and I work in the field and I'm constantly holding everybody else. It's nice to be held for a little while. So I definitely miss that. And there's so much more going on with the therapeutic process about growth and all that stuff, but even just the basics. And the situation with the cost of private practice is enormous. But that being said, most of the time when we're searching for a good therapist, we're suggested, let's go to private practice. And when it comes to a clinic, generally, our initial response is that, they probably don't have great therapists in a clinic, because if they were great, they would be in private practice charging me $350 an hour. So, I mean, that's a question I have about clinics. Like, how are you going to deal with that? And is it true? You hear what I'm saying? Is that true? And if it's not true, how are you going to deal with the fact that someone like me may not consider going to a clinic? And not necessarily because of the stigma problem that you were talking about, but like, I need a great therapist. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, you cracked open a bunch of pieces over here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the money.
Let's hear. I want to hear the Professor Brecher.
Let's hear. Let's talk about the money just very quickly, because I feel like it's like beating a horse. I don't know what the answer is for that. It was just brought up at the Good Convention, where they had a mental health conference for a day and a half, and that was brought up of like, what in the world is going on. And there was like two sides of that. And some people said, hey, it cost me a lot of money as a therapist, as a new therapist, to go to therapy and get trainings and live life, and I need to charge that. And there were other pieces that people that said like that does not make sense enough to charge the same amount as somebody with 20 years experience. I don't know what the answer should be. Obviously, it's when somebody is coming to therapy, for the most part, I'm generalizing. A lot of people coming to therapy are struggling already in things,
right.
And financially. In the Orthodox world, it's not like, hey, we have extra money for $250 a session, extra $1,000 a month, just to throw at one child to go to therapy or one parent to go to therapy. Usually there's a little bit more, or so it's really, really sad, and that kills me. As part of my passion of what we do and why we do what we do, even though it's like so hard, the work that we do is so hard, and being able to just collect that money from insurance, but it's. I know I can go to sleep well knowing that there are 400 people a week that are not spending that $200, $300, $400 on a session.
Right.
I don't know if there's enough rabbis that could put their foot down. The price, inflation, it's not going to get a unanimous push, but you can get non-Jewish therapists for much cheaper, right? So what's up?
Has there ever been brought up the topic of, okay, so you didn't really address the question that I have,
okay,
which is
why
why doesn't a therapist, why don't I think of clinics and be like, wow, that clinic, and hopefully you are that clinic, but and you'll tell me that clinic's just got the best therapist. Like, you go there and you're just getting the top-notch therapy. You don't even need to go to private practice. I feel like that's the answer to the problem. They're the same training. I mean, this guy went to social work school. This guy got his ID. They're all working the same training. How did these guys in private practice literally charge 4 times the price of the other people? How does a clinic address this?
So as far as I'm concerned, I love to be able to watch therapists grow through their process. Maybe I'll take a therapist that's right out of school. Maybe I'll take a therapist that's only been doing it for 2 years and stick around and watch them grow. And then I get really happy when they have that confidence and competence to be able to have a private practice. And I want them to, because I want them to pay their bills. And unfortunately, insurance, doesn't pay well enough to be able to say, like, hey, let me just work in a clinic for the rest of my life on salary. It's like it's not. It's unsustainable. So
could somebody work in a clinic and actually sustain themselves? Like, is that a possibility financially, or is it just not possible?
It's very hard. As a regular line clinician is very hard. I mean, maybe if they're a supervisor or program director, start doing more things, they can make more money. And different agencies make different money from insurance. So, it's a hard challenge. So from my perspective is I want them to go out and make whatever they have to make in order to live, but sort of give back to the community and say, I'll do 2 days a week or 3 days a week private practice, and then I'll do 2 days a week at Daas, or 1 day a week at Daas. So I still can get those really good therapists, and they'll be like, I'll take a pay cut for that, but there's some, they may take it off. I asked a rabbi and take it off of miser money, just whatever works to be able to help them, help me stay with these therapists and provide that service, and they can feel good about that, and everyone can get, everyone wins.
So you're saying that probably the top reason why a therapist would leave a clinic and move to private practice is financial?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I thought it was paperwork.
I think it's financial.
That was for me.
It's a little bit of paperwork. I mean, I think that going back to why would people want to or not want to go to a clinic, there's a lot of different variables that we can talk for hours about. But one of those pieces are just accountability. I mean, if you go into a private practice and you don't like that therapist, he did something or she did something that made you uncomfortable. And then you're just like, oh, I'll just stop going. And then they're continuing to do therapy with other people. There's no accountability. And that's scary. Yeah. Over here, it's like.
And we've seen a lot of terrible cases.
Yeah, it's out there. It's really, I wouldn't say it's bad, but the stories are bad that do happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's a slow spiral. I think it's just hey, you start with something and then it just ends up, the boundaries, and I'm trying to help the person and things go wrong. But over here, it's something goes wrong in the clinic. You pick up the phone, call a supervisor. We're on top of it. We're making sure that things are, you want to switch to the therapist. There's so much more responsibility that we can take as far as making sure that the person is getting the help that they need.
Right. I just think it's so sad that you're creating a system that you're losing your top quality people. That's sad. I mean, and you're give back, charity. Okay. I don't know if there's a way. I'm asking you because you're in the business. Is there a way to make, somebody be we want to be in this clinic so bad because people there are doing such good, meaning as a therapist? Is there a way to get a therapist to be this is it? Maybe financially better, or the training better, or turn it into a non-for-profit type of thing. What we're doing, okay, I'll mention what we're doing here in the Sober Living. We are charging money, right? You didn't get to go around and see what it is, but you're familiar with us for a long time.
Sure.
And we charge you money, but what we give service-wise is ridiculous because I'm also raising money. Meaning I charge money to cover, like to somewhat almost break even. But I want to give services that are way beyond. I want to be able to pay my employees that are way beyond. So I've taken it into kind of like, there's a pay. And then, but you're going to pay, let's say, $5,000 a month, and you'll get $10,000 a month worth of services. And the employees will be paid well. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to turn this into a hybrid, because to me it's such a shame to think about. You go into a clinic, these people are trained well, they got the same training, they got the same therapy, they're going to the same school, and the second they get really good, they want to leave. How do we keep them in? Is there, like, if you could, I don't know if this is a passion of yours, but it is something of mine, and I am curious if it's possible, even theoretically, to literally make a place that, like, I'm dying to work there, and I'm willing to work there for 25 years. And I'm a good therapist.
I think that it's possible. And even if I didn't think of all the ways that it's possible, but I think there is a possibility in being able to do that. But I think that there is another piece here of a therapist went, for sure, much more in the Orthodox world. Like when I was a student in school, the professor walked in and said, "You guys all want to open up your private practice already, huh?"
Yeah.
Like they don't do that with other classes, like with everyone else that are going into social work. Like there's so many different ways that a person could be a social worker in case management and in different areas. So in the Orthodox world, the pinnacle of success is a private practice. So a therapist, when they do get good, like they're just waiting for that piece. So even if I said, "Hey, 1 second, I could pay you that price," I don't even know if money would be enough to be able to say, "Oh, I'll stay here." They might just be like, "No, I have to do this cool thing that therapists do, which is have a private practice."
Wow. You're saying this, maybe it's like a cultural thing.
I think there's an ego thing. I think there's like a piece of like, I've made it. Like when does a therapist feel like they made it? When they have a private practice.
You know that I'm the first person who gave up my private practice. I don't know. It's very draining, a private practice to me. It's rough. Okay.
And that's why sometimes I like when therapists are able to do both and they come to us. You have a secretary that will do the work as far as scheduling. You have everything is set up. You just come and do the therapy. Versus if you're in your private practice, now you have to arrest them for money, and now it's like you're answering texts, and it's much more hands on. Over here, it's like everything's set up already. I got 6 in a row that I can work with. I can try to help, and it's locked in. So there are some pluses,
right?
But
no, it drives me crazy, and I because what a clinic does, and you could talk more about it. What I love, because we use clinics here with the sober livings, is that everybody's there. I mean, you have the nurse there, you have the psychiatrist there, the therapist there. If you need to do any testing, it's all in one place. And to me, it's this almost like dream, and you could talk more about it. It's this dream because I'm dealing with some cases where I'm one piece and they're another piece, and I got the psychiatrist there, and we're not working together. Even if we're really good, we're calling once in a while. We're not getting together as a team and meeting. And then, how I want to make that I feel like if I'm pitching it to you, if you figure out how to make everybody stay and people will beg to get a job there. If I could just get a job there, that will be the pinnacle, You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Because you have all the pieces.
Yeah. And when we met with Relief, originally, and they're we like to send to clinics when it's a family, when there's a couple of different pieces going on. So we'll send 2-3 kids and a mother or a father, and that way everyone's under the same roof, and all the therapists can interact and talk and get on the same page.
Right.
But when it came to the one-on-one, they're "Oh, we don't want to, we're not sending to you." Now they're coming back and they're saying, okay, they are saying, Relief is saying that people just can't afford it anymore. And so they're coming to clinics more of just as an option. But it wasn't like that for a very long time.
Right.
So yeah.
No, but when is
happy.
there a case when someone just needs therapy?
1 second. I get so happy when exactly that, like that happens. When therapists are able to go over to our medication provider and say, this client is feeling more down these days. Next time you see her, please check in on her meds. And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have other people that won't be able to catch that. And here we could do that.
But we're called Our Village, like my sober living. That is my whole philosophy, that a village is what's needed. Not a couple of people that are separated. They're working together. It's gotten, this topic is so important. This topic is so important because I think clinic is the answer to a really big issue. And that big issue is that private practice has priced itself out. Like, there are multimillionaires that have cash in the bank that could pay $350. Like right now, like if you don't charge like $400 and if you have a spot in the next 6 months, you're like a loser. Like, what's wrong with you? Like a nebuch? You actually have a spot for me? I don't even want to go to you. So it's like an old, what's his name, that comedian? What's that Jewish comedian? Jackie Mason routine. Like my doctor, he's so good that he never has space to see me. Like that's how a Jewish person sees a doctor.
Right.
But it's gotten to a place where I know these 4 therapists, and I tell people go to these 4 therapists, and they have no room, and I have nothing to say. You call Relief. They send you to people. Relief, I've stopped my private practice 7 years ago, something like that. I did, some consulting in the middle, but I stopped my private practice about 7 years ago. Relief sends me 1 to 2 people a week. I'm like, why are you still sending me people? I keep telling them, stop, right? But apparently there's a lack of therapists. But you have clinics that are ready to go. So that's here's my challenge.
I feel like it's we should have even the playing field. We should have had like Relief over here and a private practice therapist over here, and getting all.
I'll bring them up.
I'm like only one side over here. That was like, of course you're saying the clinic's great because you run a clinic.
Well, okay, I would like you to make a real case for clinics because we have a problem that has to be fixed. It seems that everybody's got to go to therapy. I'm not getting into the bigger topic of if we have to go to therapy. Let's assume this is here to stay, right? And everybody needs it. I mean, every school, if there's a problem with the kid, they say go to therapy. That's where we're at. Whether we're right or wrong, I don't know.
Right.
But that's where we're at. Meanwhile, everybody knows if you want top therapy, you got to go to private practice. So you're running a clinic. What's the case for clinics? I want someone to look at this and go, oh, maybe I'll give clinic a try. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is a clinic providing that I can't get in private practice? Because I think this is all going to go on to clinics. That's all I'm saying. At some point, I'm going to say, Pinny, I need you to up your game so much that they don't even look at private practice.
Right. And no, I hear that. And I think that people don't realize that there are therapists that work in clinics that also have a private practice. So even if someone says, no, I only want to go to a person with private practice, like, yeah, but he works in a clinic 1 day a week. Why wouldn't you go to the clinic? So I don't know, whatever reasons they're not going to a clinic, but as far as the therapy is concerned, I think that I could talk for myself. Daas Wellness Center, we work so hard on making sure that our therapists are doing an incredible job. We have so many trainings. Moshe Zavlam just came last week. He gave 2 parts, 6 hours just on ACT therapy. And
you have to tell me when these guys are coming in so I can get them for my podcast. Go on.
Yeah. And even like if a therapist asks me,
is Moshe Zavlam's son Shmuel Lamb the one I had on my podcast?
I don't know.
Ellie, you know.
So we provide group supervision twice a week, individual supervision with each therapist for 45 minutes to an hour every week. Like there is so much support. If you are a therapist and you're working with somebody, you're like, I don't know what to do next. Like you have what to go to, you have who to go to, and even if you don't have that supervisor, but you have a therapist right next door that's also working, and like they'll talk. So from that sense, it's just there's so much out there that people can gain from a clinic. Sometimes the clinics get a bad rap because they have younger, newer therapists, and I hear that. But I would say that sometimes I've met with older therapists that have their private practice that just say, "Oh yeah, I get it, I understand. Yeah, I get it." Like, no, as a therapist, we don't ever get it. We're always still learning. We're always still trying to understand. There's always pieces that we don't know. So I don't like when people already know everything. I like when people are trying to actively work and learn and grow, and do the best that they can in therapy.
Right. What is the atmosphere between the clinicians in the place? Let me ask this question a little differently, because I have some thoughts in my head, and I'm asking a question at the end of the thoughts. Let me say all the thoughts. Basically, what I've found, and this is one of my problems with private practice for myself, is that you get deeply, deeply involved in these cases. And I know you're not supposed to get emotionally connected the same way, and there's boundaries and all that stuff, but all that, when you really, really care about somebody, it's really rough to do that. So you're very, very involved. I've had a private practice, and I've worked in, well, I wouldn't say clinics. I run our place. I run our village. I have a team around me. When that team is working together, I'm alive. Everybody in the team is alive. We're ready to go. We got good leadership. We're pumped. We're exhausted. We get into a staff meeting. We're laughing our heads off. We're like, some of our staff meetings are just hilarious because we all have to like let off steam, and there's a community. Like in this house, we talk about there are two villages going on. There's the staff village and the guys village, and then together we're a big village. But we go to a staff meeting, we're sharing our own stuff. There's safety. There's, so to me, one of the greatest benefits of working with a team, when I see some of the older private practice people, like there's like a deadness to their eyes, like it's just hour after hour after hour.
It'd be lonely.
It's a bit lonely. This guy on this chat that I was on recently is like, I'm on my 10th client. I'm 3 more left before tonight. I'm like, that's 13. And I remember doing this. That's 13 hours a day of seeing people who are suffering. Like either you put up walls or you fall apart. Neither one is not great.
Yeah.
So what do you do for that? You understand? Are you agreeing that that's super important? Because to me, that's a huge benefit of a clinic.
Yeah. So I would say that there is something very powerful of being able to come out of a very, very heavy session, and have a supervisor that's sitting down and at their desk, and you could just like pass by that office and be like, I just had a heavy session. Like that's not even part of their hour of supervision that they come, and that's not even part of their group supervision. That's just like you can unload that right there. Like go talk to somebody and let it out of what's going on. How was that session for you? Right. And that like those are so powerful. Like right after the session, to be able to just like, I have to just get this off my chest as a therapist. We're people,
right?
People forget that.
So you're saying the atmosphere, like, it's more casual in terms of like you're able to like walk in and have a little extra dose from your colleagues and stuff like that. There's
much more of that available as far as the therapists that we have working. I mean, sometimes it's very busy and everyone's busy, but there's the before and the after and even during, where therapists are available to working on their own notes, and somebody else comes in and talks to them, and like so.
Right.
I love it. I think it's so healthy to be able to just be in that world of having that safety.
Could I give you a suggestion I thought of this morning? Went into my head.
All right, here we go.
Someone just kind of offered me to like run one of these things, right? I don't want to. But the second the idea came into my head, all of a sudden ideas start coming to me. And so I'm thinking about this topic of not paying enough. And also, you need to make this atmosphere of like this loving, awesome environment. And I was trying to think, I thought of this one idea. Because you bring in trainings. You bring in this Lamb or whoever else you bring in, and there's a lot of trainings. And trainings are awesome. But I got to tell you, when I worked in, like, I was like, another training. I got to go. I was thinking, what if you took the money for trainings and each person gets an opportunity to do a training from the inside and get like a $500 like check or whatever. I don't know what you pay for trainings, $100, $1,000, whatever it is, but each person has to do it. And or they get the options, like a way to get bonuses, but also a way to kind of like get to see what other people's work is like, and they have to kind of perfect what they're doing, and everybody has to kind of like raise up to the opportunity of like, this is what I'm doing. I feel like it would do a lot for morale and also extra money. Do you do this?
I'm not understanding. So you're saying if I was a therapist, I would go for an IFS training,
right,
and then come back and then talk.
Forget
about
IFS training. Every therapist in there has got something to train. I don't know if it's specifically IFS. Like, if you really want to get trained in IFS and you bring in a trainer and he gives an hour or two of IFS, you didn't get trained in IFS.
Right,
but you get a little taste. It's nice.
Right.
So a training, unless you're doing a 2-day course, which I can't change, although I would consider this, to do it inside, to take the money for the training and give it as an opportunity for your colleagues. Let's say there's, how many therapists are there right now? 30. So you have once every other week, one of the colleagues gets up, prepares a presentation, if they want to. They're going to get a fat check, I don't know, whatever you pay for a trainer. And they have to train in what they want. Meaning, it's kind of taken from the concept of Google that like 10% of your time is for you. You need your project. So you have a presentation of what you think is the most important. Maybe you present it. What do you think about this idea? They present it. Okay, we like that training. I was just thinking it kind of, but there's a lot of pride in there.
Yeah.
Like, you have your colleague, you see him passing by in the hall. Hey, you doing? Blah, 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 What is their message? What is their thing? I keep thinking, how do you make this the best environment that no one ever wants to leave? You hear what I'm saying?
Free food, no?
Free food's huge. But like, I honestly believe that money is not as big a motivator as people think. I really, really believe this. I have found, and studies, right?
We've seen it. The studies have shown. Yeah.
Studies have shown, and in my own life, like, if I feel like, I have been working for our place for 20 years. I moved to Monsey 11 years ago. I've gotten a lot of great job offers in the middle. Our place is the greatest organization I've ever worked for in my life. I never want to leave them. Like, I don't think that money would pull me away. I just don't think it's true. But the environment is so important. I want to, so I'm throwing this idea at you. What do you think? What's the idea? Do you understand the idea?
I like the idea. We actually do some of these pieces. Like, when somebody comes to me and says, I'm taking a somatic training with Ricky Bernstein, that's $1,200.
Right.
So, maybe I give $600, maybe I pay for the whole thing. But there are times where I'll pay more, and I'll say to them, when you come back at our next group supervision, you're presenting. And
okay.
I do that. And we get to hear about that. So it puts a little bit more pressure on them to like pay more attention during these trainings, make it work, and give it over, and other ways that people could connect and learn. You never know what people learn, how people learn. Sometimes they're more visual, and they just like to listen to the stories. Like, there's so many different ways.
Right.
So I do like that idea. I don't think there's a secret potion. It's not like money was the thing. It's not money, right? So what do we do? We offer unbelievable flexibility. I mean, you have any time that you sort of need to take off. Like, I'm not down your back. You're a therapist. You're working hard. You have to do what you have to do. Your family comes first. Your life comes first.
Right.
And that's something. And with these trainings and the culture and the environment and feeling like you have these supports, these are all part of the big picture of like, how am I going to be able to hold on to you? Because you're not staying here for the money, or I hope that you're not staying here for the money, because you're not going to be staying here long if you are, like,
right.
or not very long. I could try to do what I could do, but that's what we try to build all these other pieces together, and that's what talks, and that's what really does talk.
Right.
And I've had therapists that came with me. They had 4 job offers in the last 4 weeks, and they're like, I'm not going. I'm staying here. I love it.
Oh, so that's good.
Yeah, so that's awesome. And we have a lot of those stories.
Okay, so now the question. This is the PR question. You ready? There are a lot of clinics in the area, some Jewish, some non-Jewish. Why did you make Daas?
Why did I make Daas?
Yeah.
I made Daas because I had a joke answer. I will not be saying that joke answer.
No joke answer?
I made Daas because I was working in Monsey in a mental health facility, and I felt like there was the process was slow. There was a waiting list. Like there was just too much. And I wanted to figure out a way that I can help people faster. And, I don't know, better when it comes to therapy, because therapy is therapy, but what can we do for the community that can streamline the process, that you're not waiting 4 months for a therapist, that you're not waiting for an intake, or you have to jump through hoops in order to get somebody on the phone. Like these things I'm passionate about. Like when somebody makes that phone call to a clinic, any clinic, that means they've been chewing on that idea for a while, or somebody told them, you can't do this anymore. You got to go somewhere.
Right.
And they're making that phone call. And when they make that phone call, I don't want to say, oh, sorry, we're busy. Like, call back in 2 weeks, see if that person's available. Like, no, I want you in right now. You're in pain. I want to hold you. Come in. Let's do an intake. Let's see what the story is. Maybe I'll have somebody for you right this minute. Maybe I'll have we'll figure something out. We care. That, we meet with marketers. They say, like, oh, what makes you different so we can make ads? I'm like, we care. We're on the phone. We're on the phone extra. We're there for you. I just spoke to Mudim for a half hour on there. Like, I'm like, here's my cell phone number. Like, call me, text me, ask me a question. I'm here. Like,
right.
Does that affect my family? I hope not. But my family life. But this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about real work. This is not a numbers game of just like you're another number in the system. These are people.
How do you do it? I've been saying there seems to be a huge influx of people coming in to get therapy, especially in the Jewish community. How are you able to streamline that process?
So we do have a system. Let's say when it comes to an intake and how we collect their insurance information and be able to schedule. We have a lot of hours that we're open in the evenings and on Sundays, but also just being able to have good supervisors. We have good supervisors that I'm able to delegate, and I have an intake coordinator who's also an LCSW and a therapist and a supervisor. He's everything. So
right.
he's able to sit there with the therapist after that intake and say, and he'll read the note, and then he'll call the therapist and say, tell me more.
Right.
What else is going on over here that I'm missing, or that I, because I have a therapist in mind, but I just want to make sure, like, does this make sense? And he'll do that. He'll do that often because we want to make sure that we're getting the right shidduch.
So how do you get these therapists to buy into this, like, caring more than most? I mean, most therapists care, but you're saying that, like, your mission, in a sense, is we care. So how do you get that over to, your team?
Because I care about my therapists as well. We just went to Fireside as a whole clinic of therapists for a dinner right before Hanukkah. Just we had some entertainment and some food and some prizes, and just like, I care about you.
Right.
I want to take care of you. I want to pamper you, and just like I'm pampering you, I want you to pass that on.
Right.
And that's the message. The message is like, I can't ask you to do more than I'm doing for you.
It's pretty fancy.
So, yeah, we have these cool
Firesides are really fancy. I would take out everybody to pizza, and that's what we do here. Everybody would going out to pizza.
Yeah. No, we splurged, and I think because they are working hard. These therapists are listening to hard stories, and they're working hard. And if they're only looking at their paycheck, they're not really getting fully appreciated.
Right.
They need that extra pat on the back.
They need a lot more.
Yeah.
All right. What is okay, you're doing this for how long are you doing it for?
I'm doing this for 6 years. A little over, somewhere around there.
So what is the thing that's really frustrating? Like it's like What's happening? Let me hear.
Well, I think that what's going on over there? You're not gonna like this answer.
Okay, go for it.
I think that there is like this piece of a parenting piece, and not to blame the parents, but there's a lot of children that we'll see and a lot of adults that we'll see that does come back to something missing in their childhood.
Right.
Whether it's parenting, whether it's rebellion, whether it's somebody who broke their self-esteem, their self-confidence. Like Rabbi Abraham J. Twersky, Shalom, like doctor, he said all of my 75, 80 books, they all had to do with building self-esteem and self-confidence.
Right.
And when I see an adult who is established in the community, who has an excellent job, who has wonderful family, and they come in and I hear their story and I see that they're like their self-esteem is the size of a peanut, I cry for them. Because if somebody would have just given that little extra love when they were a child of like, no, you are worth it, then like their shoulders would be like straight up. But because they had something that turned them off, that shut them down, that closed them down, and that just festered and that just sat around and built inside of them. And now they are making money or they are doing a wonderful job at things, but they still like, but I'm not good at this, but I'm not good at that. And it's just like everything is black. It's like so sad. It's so sad for me when I see that.
So I wouldn't like this because I'm on a crusade of like, stop blaming the parents.
Well, I didn't say parents over here. I made it. I made it more. It could have been a Rebbe. It could have been a Rebbe that broke a child. It could have been. It could have been siblings.
Well, you're. I can't say I don't like what you said, but it makes me think of much bigger things. Okay, so bigger picture. Let's take this to a little bigger picture. And the reason you're asking me like, you thought I'm not going to like it is because I'm thinking, and you spoke to me several times, and I'm always thinking like bigger picture. And there's a frustration in me that we have more therapy than ever. We have more psychiatrists. We have more. We didn't even have this stuff 200 years ago. Like it's all fairly new, and we have more. And all I'm seeing is more and more and more pain. Just so much more. And the world is just getting better, like in every way. But for some reason, we are feeling more and more and more pain. And we all are kind of looking at the parents. In most therapies, they're like, there's this focus on parents. And I'm like, is that what happened? Is like all parents just kind of suck? And then like, that's what happened? Or is there a state of the world that's like, you know what? I'll tell you, I'll even go more personal. Me and my wife, we're crazy in love with each other, which I'm glad I got to say in the podcast because it's already been over an hour and I didn't say that. We have awesome check, shalom bias. It's, like the best speeches, like shalom bias is the most important thing about raising your kids. So we actually are like crazy about each other in a way that I'm like so happy on a daily basis that I lucked out that I married the one great girl in the world. So I'm just kidding. There are a lot of great girls in the world. Just not for me. And it's been wonderful. And we've spent years reading parenting books. And, we started right in the beginning. My wife is really on top of this stuff. And I'm a little bit on top of it. And I give lectures about parenting, and I know all about parenting, and I try my best. And I'm really nice to my kids as much as I can be. And my wife, we're trying our best. And you know what happened? All my kids are struggling. They're becoming adults, and they struggle with life struggles. And if they go to therapy, they will come down to, well, you missed this, and there was a little neglect there, and there was a little abuse there, and it was like, and probably all it's true. It's probably all true. Maybe we did neglect in this area. Maybe
you can't be everywhere at everything.
But come on. You know what I mean? Like, but come on, so many parents look at me and they're like, I don't get it. I did everything. I did every carpool. I did I've been on top of it like you never, and all the kids come in like, my parents didn't do this and that, and I get it. It's like, But there's got to be a bigger picture story here. Like, I'm not buying, like, Freud, I got you, you had bad parents, but, like, do we still, like, our parents are still also usually the people that gave us everything, you know? And I'm not taking away from the therapeutic idea of that parents are responsible. But there must be a bigger picture why everybody in the world seems to be, at least in the first world country, seems to be struggling. That, I mean, your problem with the clinics in the area is that they'd wait a year before they see you, or they wait 6 months before they see you. That means everybody needs to go to therapy. Like, you opened your clinic, you were full pretty fast. You know what I'm saying? And you got to work on making sure everybody gets in. It's not like you have, like, empty beds, you know, like, theoretically, I have the beds world, but you don't have empty sessions, and maybe certain seasons, but, you know, it's full. People are trying to get into therapy.
Right.
What the heck is going on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's why, you know why I'm like, it's about parents. Yeah, I could always see the neglect. I could always see the abuse. Why is everybody so freaking miserable?
So
there you go.
So before I like address this head on,
yeah,
let's talk about kids being kids again. So if let's say, right, because when we were growing up, no one was going to therapy. I don't know, there wasn't any.
No, they sent me to therapy like 100 times. So, but I was a special case. I don't know if you remember me as a kid. I knew of a
therapist when I was growing up.
What?
Except for your mother.
Right, my mother was like the only therapist. No, they sent me to 1,000 therapists, but I was trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was rare.
You were hardcore.
I was hardcore.
I was only.
It's when rollerblades were still cool.
Yeah, I still have a memory of Dr. Akiva Perlman rollerblading backwards, weaving down Sage Street.
He was quite good.
Yeah. Shim was really good.
I don't want to admit that he was better than me, but he was very good.
Good times.
Good times.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that let's say the parenting was the same. It was the same 30 years ago as it is today. But things were not. What I'm bringing out is awareness.
Yeah.
Is that I think that things were just not addressed. Things were not. People weren't aware of it. Was there more resiliency? Maybe that people just rough it through. You know, just to get it done, you know, figure out how to do it. And here we have the same issues, and they're not like rough it through. They're like, here, according to you, take the blame. You know, blame your parents. Don't sit there and just try to rough it through, because everyone is weak nowadays, and nobody has the patience to really work hard. I was just thinking out loud. I mean, because this is not a black and white answer of how to fix it.
But let's get down to the people our age. They're a wreck. Everybody I know is like, I don't know how to do this. It's too much. I have anxiety. I have depression. I'm not talking about only people I work. I work with addiction. It's very, very extreme examples of this. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about my friends. I'm talking about people I meet in shul. Everybody is like, life is so hard. And these are people that have jobs and careers. And I guarantee that you feel that way too. And I feel that way too. Because everybody seems to be.
Right.
So, I don't know. The parenting styles are radically different today than they were when our parents, you know, we have all these memes. Like, you know, if you remember this from the 80s, you know. Like, our parents didn't even know where we were. That was the move in the 80s and 90s. Like, nobody cared. But it's not like we're also like, yeah, we have careers, we have jobs, we have all that stuff. I think these 20-year-old kids are going to all have that too. But emotionally, everybody is a wreck. So it's like, how much could we say it's the parents at this point? I feel like there has to be a bigger picture. I don't know. We don't need an answer. I don't need you to answer.
Yeah, I mean, part of this awareness piece that I was bringing up before is that there's also an awareness now that the world is so fast paced, right? So nobody has time to do mindfulness, right?
Right.
They're putting them into school curriculums now to try to help people have mindfulness. So I think that that's an important piece, because here, you know, everything is moving so fast. We have so many people that now all of a sudden are starting to feel sad or anxious or these type of things. Is it their parents? Maybe. Is it or maybe not. And maybe now what they're feeling is just overwhelmed, and that there's just so much going on. And if we're able to just slow that down, maybe it's not really so therapy related after all. Obviously, we meet enough people that do have severe symptoms that it can give them some sort of diagnosis. But there are definitely enough people that if they were able to slow down, if they were able to just have those healthy supports, they didn't need the therapy. People are pushing therapy because that's where you're going to be held.
Right.
Besides for the skills of getting that's needed for the people that need it. But over here, like, we're just talking about how do we slow down and take a moment, think about what's going on, and people are just unhappy because of so many different things.
Okay, so the fast pace, it's an interesting perspective. You think slowing down is with the mindfulness, like on the parents' part, on the kids' part? Who's got to slow down?
On everyone's part. Let's say if a parent was able to slow down, even though they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs and they're drained, but if they were able to figure out how do I
slow down?
How do they come into their house and take that moment, let's say before they go into the house, and take a couple of breaths or a couple of minutes, park around the corner. If they were able to do that and then come into their house, they're so much more present. There's so much more there. So I don't know if it's the parents that are always the issue.
Right.
But if we can inject a little bit more slow down in our lives, I think that would help build healthier acknowledgement of what's really going on.
Right. Wow, so much of this is about finances. Like, I'm like trying to think. Like, I had his father tell me once. He said, "For every kid, every tuition, I need another job." Like, he wasn't. Like, he was I think he ended up being like a Rosh Yeshiva or something like that. But he was a Rebbe, and like every time, every tuition, he had another job.
You got to listen to Kosher Money for that.
Right, you got to listen to Kosher Money for that. But you're saying slow down. I'm thinking, how? How do we slow down? I can't think of how that, but okay, I'm here, and maybe that's one of the things.
Well, I guess one more thing. I don't know if we're wrapping up over here, but one more thing is also parents might feel like they are going 60 miles an hour to help their children, right? They're doing everything. They're going all in. They're buying them everything. They're doing it. They might be doing certain things wrong, even though they think that they're being the most present parent. So if they are able to take that step back, or get a coach, or get a therapist, or get some sort of parenting piece over here, they might be able to figure out, like, hey, I don't need to do a half hour spending quality time with my child. That's not really healthy quality time because I'm not really focused in that time, or I'm not doing the things that are connecting. But I can find those things that really talks to my child, and now I'll do that only for 10 minutes, and that's more powerful than the half hour with my child. Like, there's some of that reset that has to get done. When you talk to somebody like, oh, well, try this. I tried it. Like, there's a piece of like this, I give up. I'm trying the best I can. I'm doing, and I'm trying. Well, like, maybe you are, but maybe if you just did something a little bit differently, like, you'll see so much different results.
Yeah. Okay. I'm getting exhausted just thinking about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have only 4 kids. When I say only 4 kids, because I'm in a community where some people have 8 kids, 10 kids, I like 15 kids, which I can't even comprehend. Like, my brain literally fizzes out when I think of that many kids, although I grew up in a big family. I have no idea how anybody's doing it. I can't think, like, I think me and my wife, it's just not enough people to raise this little family. We're trying our best. We're tag teaming. I come home, she's exhausted. I'll take over, then I'm exhausted, and then she'll take over. And sometimes we'll work together. And also I got to keep my 2 jobs and sometimes 3 jobs, and my wife's got a job, and so it's like, I don't know. I guess as I get older and I'm a parent, I'm just so much more empathetic to the parents. Like, it's hard for me to like look and say like it's the parents. Like, I think there's much much bigger picture. And I will say, on a happy note, a really happy note, we are living in the best time period ever, and I think we're getting better and better as a human race. Like, I think we are more compassionate, more loving. There hasn't been a major war in a long time. There's like, we're trying our best to be awesome, but I think this emotional thing is so new. This concept of like we have to care about people's emotions. It's brand new. And we are living in a place where it's not about survival.
To be sensitive.
Right. So now we're just trying to figure it out. But every once in a while when I read a book and it's like it's about parenting, it's about the schooling, it's about education, and in myself I'm like, I think we just have to get a little bit more humble and say we're not really sure yet. But we're going to try to hold each other until we figure it out. And maybe it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And if you speak to anybody who deals with learning disability, they'll be like, the reason everybody's suffering is because of learning disabilities. Or you work to have ADHD, well, the reason people are suffering ADHD. Or if someone's like a Freudian, it's like it's for sure the mother or maybe the father, most likely the mother. and I think that I would like the world to be more humble. And stand back. I don't know what you think about this, but stand back and say, like, we don't really know yet. This is pretty new. What do you think about that?
I like what you're saying. I like what you're saying. And what's going through my head is there is so much passion. There's so many people that are trying so hard to put out this content to help children. Mm-hmm. And there's so many parents out there that are trying to help their children. And there's so many courageous people stepping into the therapy room to get that help. So when you're talking about the world, being a better place, and we as therapists, can see the world in a little bit of a grayer way. But just talking now, it was a nice reminder of like how much work is going on. People are getting the help. There are success stories. There are parents that are doing the right thing and that are seeing that nachas. Maybe they're seeing it sooner, maybe they're seeing it later, and hopefully you'll be able to see that with your kids in that area. But like, there's something very, very special about parents that are so engaged, and whether it's working or not. They're fighters. It's huge.
Well, my goal is that my kids talk to me when I get old. This is my goal. That's how I live my life. It's terror. One last question before we finish. I like to ask everybody this question. Like, if you had, stand on top of the roof and you wanted to shout something to the world, this is kind of the place. There's a lot of people listen to this podcast. What would you say? What do you have to shout to the world?
I couldn't get like a heads up on this one.
No, it's more fun this way. You got to have something that's really that you're excited about or revved about.
I'll tell you what works for me, and I'll share that with the world. What I focus on a daily basis, because of all the things that I do see and because of everything that goes on, I focus on my gratitude and my gratefulness to Hashem. And I am constantly just going over what am I thankful for right now. And it's during davening, and it's during the day, and it's after hearing a sad story. It keeps me grounded, and it keeps me thankful, it keeps me happy. And I think that if people are able to spend some time on that, and I'm not saying that they're not, but if they could, it really just helps look at the world in a better way, and just being calmer with yourself, even though there could be so many bad things going on in someone's life. But to just stop and say, okay, but what am I thankful for right now? What am I happy about? What's going for me right now? Besides for the 19 things that are not. So I think that's my message to somebody who might be struggling with a lot. Yes, there is a lot. There's a lot on your plate, but there's also a lot that maybe not a lot, but there's something that we can find that you can be thankful for.
I think that's a beautiful way to end. I really, really do. And I'm thankful for you today.
Thanks for having me.
It was awesome. I'm really glad you came in.
Amazing. This is awesome. Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you for this day that I've been given. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this chance to live anew.